everyone. Thank you all for being here. We are holding this press conference to share our story about what is happening to Gret Glyer's case at the hands of the prosecutors of Fairfax County. Under normal circumstances, my family would be allowed to read victim impact statements allowed in court at sentencing, according to the Virginia Victims' Bill of Rights. When my dad asked our prosecutor about this, she said it was no longer an option for us. Instead, I dropped off my parents' and I's victim impact statements to the court, as that is our only chance of the judge hearing how the loss of Gret has affected us. My parents will be reading a portion of their impact statements here today, since that is the only option available to us. Indeed, these have not been normal circumstances, and I want to use this time to highlight what our experience with the legal process has been like. On June 24, 2022, my brother Gret was murdered in the middle of the night in his sleep. 10 bullets went into his head and neck, killing him instantly. The hard work of Detective Green found the killer less than a week after the murder. We are thankful to the Fairfax Police Department for finding and arresting him so quickly. Unfortunately, that is where the competent handling of this case ended. For the last 3.5 years, we have been told that the Commonwealth of Virginia will charge the defendant with first-degree murder. We pleaded with Eric Klingon to please add additional charges, such as breaking and entering, or use of a firearm in commission of a felony, which could add decades of time to the prison sentence. Eric refused because he did not want to, quote, confuse the jury. The Commonwealth Attorney's Office does not think the people of Virginia could handle hearing more than one charge during a murder trial. They did not seek the maximum sentence for this crime. Eric was ultimately removed from our case at the end of last year after someone called 911 on him because he was drinking on his way to work again. The police officer recognized Eric as a prosecutor with Virginia, chose not to do a sobriety test on him, and ultimately dropped the charges. We now understood why Eric was doing such a poor job of handling our case. For 3.5 years, we have been waiting for a trial. This is a first-degree murder meticulously planned and targeted toward my brother, who is taking credit for the crime. This is not a question of who killed Gret. This is a question of what will the consequence of killing Gret be. Jenna Sands informed us in November that the consequence of killing Gret will be no prison time, no legal responsibility for the murder, no justice for innocent victims for the worst crime someone can commit against another human being. Rather, the prosecution wants to focus on the murderer's rehabilitation at a mental facility so that he can one day be reintroduced back into society. We do not feel safe here in Fairfax County anymore, and we do not think you all should feel safe either. This is not how the criminal justice system is supposed to work. We are pleading for a trial where all pieces of evidence, including psychiatric evaluations, are presented to a jury of our peers in Virginia. We trust that Virginians will want to do the right thing when presented with all the evidence in a court of law. Only our prosecution team does not want that to happen. They want to bypass the presentation of evidence in open court and decide for themselves what should happen to my brother's killer. Dr. Eric Drogan was hired by the prosecution as the psychiatric expert. He met a few times with the defendant over Zoom and decided that those few interviews were enough to determine that he was insane at the time of the murder. Jenna Sands is relying on this report, and this report alone, to argue to the judge that Gret's case should not be taken to trial. This report is the scapegoat that they are using to get out of doing their jobs. This small group of people are acting as the jury because they think they know better than you all. What you may not know is that the defendant wrote a step-by-step plan of how he was going to kill my brother. The murder was planned for weeks by someone who intended to get away from the crime scene without being caught. He did it in the middle of the night, he wore dark clothes, and he sped his car away so fast that a neighbor heard it. 3 days after the murder, he returned to the shooting range so that he could continue practicing. The pieces of evidence found by the detectives point to someone who knew the difference between right and wrong. He knew that what he was doing was wrong, and he chose to do it anyways. This does not hold up to the threshold of insanity in Virginia. This was not a temporary break from reality. This was a targeted killing of an innocent person in cold blood. Without criminal charges, he only needs to be medicated enough to be released back into society, where he will not be held accountable for his actions. For causing my parents to lose their son, for causing Gret's wife to lose her husband, their children to lose their father, and the thousands of people around the world who knew and loved Gret to lose their friend. Steve Descano and Jenna Sands, please do the job that the people of Virginia are relying on from you. We cannot live in a society where admitted murderers can avoid prison because prosecutors, such as yourself, are allowing it. You are putting people in real danger. You are deepening the pain caused by the murderer of our beloved family member. You know that what you are doing is wrong, and you are choosing to do it anyway. Thank you.
Thank you for being here today. My name is Gret Glyer. I'm Gret's mother. And thank you for giving voice to our pain. You are finally giving us a voice to something that has been kept in secret because we were told from the beginning not to talk to anybody. Here we are, 3.5 years later, not talking to anybody and finally giving the opportunity to give voice to our pain. The impact of losing my son on the morning of June 24, 2022, at the hands of a cold-blood murderer has left me completely destroyed. I raised a good man. Gret dedicated his life to being a man of God, a trustworthy person, caring for the most needy people in the planet, and a son who was always present in our lives, even when he was on the other side of the world, helping the poor. He had dreams of seeing his young children grow up. He had dreams to see him grow up in a world where people were kinder and more just. I miss talking to him about anything. I miss his presence, his laughter, his dedication to his family. I miss having him and his family over for dinner on Sundays. My Sundays are empty and full of tears. I miss seeing him excited that someone in need received help. This emptiness and pain in my soul is present every day. What does a mother do after losing her son? I was hoping for justice, for the murderer to be behind bars for the rest of his life. For the past 3 years and 7 months, the evil murderer has killed me many times over. Needless to say, the prosecutors assigned to this case have no interest in bringing justice for my son's death. Laziness and incompetence go hand in hand with supporting crime in Virginia. They are freeing a murderer under the disguise of not guilty by reason of insanity. My life is already destroyed. My life is already destroyed without my son. Jenna Sands, please don't let insanity blind justice. you have the chance to allow other people like Gret to shine a light of kindness and love in Virginia and not be destroyed in the darkness of the night. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Gret Glyer, and I'm the father of the deceased Gret Glyer, and I have a brief statement I'd like to make. This is a statement I would have made had there been a trial and a guilty verdict, and this is the impact statement I would have made. And I'm hoping I can still read this. I'm hoping there's a trial and I can still read this. And so I want to describe the impact the senseless murder of my son Gret, in cold blood, in his sleep, had on me. The short answer is, I cannot describe it. There are no words. There is this emptiness, this hollowness in my life since June 24th, 2022, and it has not gone away, nor will it ever. In fact, I divide my life into two time periods, before June 24th, 2022, and after June 24th, 2022. Going forward, nothing else that happens in my life will change that. The last 3.5 years have been spent grieving the loss of my son, compounded by the trauma of how his life was taken. And yet, even that does not compare to what Gret's children, both under 2 years old when he was murdered, will go through. I know this because my own father was killed when I was just 3 years old. A U.S. Air Force Silver Star recipient, John Robert Glyer, died in the line of duty in 1958. How do you explain to your 4- and 5-year-old grandchildren that their father has been senselessly murdered in his sleep? My son's dream was always to be married and have children. Gret was not just a present father, but a generous person who built a charitable giving platform that fundraised for charities in third world countries. He had a heart for helping people in the world and wanted to provide for his wife and kids most of all. There's already been a lot of crying in our house in the last 3.5 years, and it will continue for the rest of our lives. However, the most heart-wrenching crying has yet to start. This will begin in a couple of years when Gret's kids start noticing that their friends have someone called Dad, and they don't. I'm trying to prepare for my grandchildren who will have questions about his death. I imagine they'll ask things like, why did this happen to him? Who would want to take my father from me? And why does everyone get to have a father except me? There are no answers to these questions. No one could answer them for me when I was growing up. Now it will be even more difficult to explain that their father was targeted and killed intentionally. Their innocence will be gone, and the pain will ache for the rest of their lives. One of the first thoughts I had of hearing about the death of my son was, my grandchildren are going to grow up without a father. The damage done by Gret's killer does not stop with the ending of my son's life. It has caused our family to lose our child, brother, and husband. It has caused thousands of people around the world to lose their friend, boss, mentor, or leader. And it will cause the next generation to be ever haunted by the actions of a sick and deranged monster. While every crime does damage to society, the heinous act of intentionally taking someone's life while they are vulnerable is evidence of the lowest member of society we can possibly have. My son believed that he was safe while sleeping in his home with his wife and children, and his killer took advantage of that. I strongly urge the court to reject the proposed not guilty by reason of insanity plea being offered. I ask the court to consider the breadth of evidence submitted during the preliminary hearing, which acts as proof of the deliberate and targeted nature of this murder. I saw with my own eyes the step-by-step plan my son's killer wrote that ensured he would get away with murder without being caught. Despite his arrest, charge, and admitting to killing Gret, we are still left with the possibility that he could be a free member of society in our lifetime. I fear for the safety of Gret's widow and children, who are at serious risk of being targeted again. Instead of dropping the criminal charges and sending him to a mental hospital, I request that all pieces of evidence, including psychiatric evaluations, be presented to a jury of our peers in Virginia. We will accept the outcome of the trial. We ask only for the chance of my son's killer being brought to justice. Thank you.